afternoon, everybody. And welcome in training camp, fall camp, Michigan football underway. That's the good news, as well as you joining us here right at the outset for this live show, which comes at you on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And we are ready to get things underway with the opening of fall camp. Woo! Yummies. Take a few breaths. I mean, I figured I had to put on a collared shirt for the occasion. Did I get up any earlier? Am I putting in any two-a-days? No, but I am. Look, it is making it more exciting. Anyways, as we sit here, as we are on the second from last day, penultimate day of July 2025. If you didn't know fall camp was opening up, it is, but you knew that the season, once the calendar flips, it had to be getting pretty close, and it is. And today we will be talking about what's happening with Michigan football and Michigan basketball. There is the hype machine that I will bring out its first installment. There's only one person you have to start out the hype machine with, and we will do that. That's going to be the quarterback. A lot of people will ask, hey, what's going on with basketball recruiting? You guys don't talk about basketball recruiting. Today, I'll give you some basketball targets to keep in mind as a Michigan fan. But we start talking about camp and being locked in. And I noticed that there were a few different people that recognized a tweet from Sharon Moore. Others where they're using the hashtag I'm locked in. Mantra, a saying, maybe for this Michigan football team. Could be happening out there. You know, when it comes to sayings and things like that, let's see if I can clear this up a little bit. Oh, that's nice. There's the hype train. There it is. My camera was going a little bit blurry. The Red Wings used to make the playoffs, every year. They haven't a long time now, but they used to every year. And they would always have this slogan for the season, get your red on. It's all kinds of different ones. And then this new guy took over, and he was a nice guy. And I remember talking with him. I was like, oh, yeah, what's the saying going to be this year? And he's like, I thought we would just, it's different. It's the Wings. We don't need any fancy slogans or anything else. It's just that we're the Red Wings. I thought, all right, okay, this was his approach. I mean, he was the new guy, but I didn't say it to him. I was like, yeah, but people like it. People like slogans and they like sayings and everything. I don't know. It just occurred to me that way. Anything that gets you going, locks you in, I'm locked in. Just always have to go back to it. We don't need a slogan. I get that. You wake up every day. You don't need to have anybody tell you that, this is a day that you should be thankful for. You're out there, you got all this stuff that you're able to do, embrace it. But, there's to get people going. A lot of people are like, man, I'm going to win today, whatever it is. But so slogans can help. Michigan's locked in. That is good. I was just, pausing to think about football in general, and just as it is all consuming. It's pretty consuming. It's when I was young, the summertime being over would make me sad. There would be no doubt. I probably had a lot to do with school starting, even though I like school, but summer was such a blast that having to go to school, even though I liked it, it was tough. But I'll have to give it up to football because football is what made it okay. It was like, yeah, but football starting, and it's still a little bit like that. Now I flipped where I like summers and everything, but I think I might like winters more. I like the cold. I like the fall and the spring the best, but man, having to say goodbye to the summer, there is a part about it where the seasons change and you're like, well, here we go. But then football is here. That's a long way to get to it to say that it's right around the corner, and I am excited about it. I've got the hype train coming up. I like to hear from all of you folks out there. When training camp starts, and you want some news. I got to say there is some news. I looked over on the Maize and Blue Review, part of On Three Rivals, and there's a story there about camp battles and the uncertainty at all these different positions. There's part of me that wishes I wouldn't have read that because I already had my ideas on what I was going to talk about today. But you could definitely, if that's something you're like, yes, that's exactly the kind of stuff that I'd like to know. Well, it's a great lead-in to tell you to come join us over on the Maize and Blue Review, part of On Three Rivals. Good time. There's a lot of good times. August, heading into the start of the season, very good time to join up with the Maize and Blue Review. All the things that you like, that you're wondering about. A lot of times it's recruiting, but then there's a lot of times with the nuts and bolts of the football team. That's all over there and what's going on. And what you'll see come the end of August for the opener. And, when I take a look at this team, this is an exciting team. This is there's, I'm going to say, a lot of uncertainty, but they've got a question mark on offense at the two most important positions, quarterback and left tackle. Now, if you're a fan and you're able to easily just get over that, and you may be able to steer clear of any type of question marks like, it's Michigan. They're going to be great. They've recruited great. They got great players, a great schedule. That's not something that's going to worry me at all. Quarterback, they got the greatest quarterback ever getting ready to, make his debut August 30th. Why would I worry about that? It would be more exciting. And I am agreeing with that about Underwood, that not worrying about it, not thinking that this is a negative, thinking that this is a positive, that you have Bryce Underwood, and this kid heading in is more decorated, is more highly thought of than anybody ever. And so, what you have when there's a certain amount of pressure and all that comes with it. But it's also, if you watch enough sports, you do get those next ones, the great ones, and the anticipation for them. You go back, you could just talk about recruiting in football, or you could open it up and look at all sports when they talk about, this one they have known about this guy forever. I always remember looking at, I collected hockey cards one year, and it was a good year to do it because it was Wayne Gretzky's rookie year. But I could always remember on the back of the Gretzky card, it had this like little cartoon, and it said, Gretzky's thought of as the best prospect since Guy Lafleur. And Guy Lafleur was great. I mean, a Hall of Famer, great Canadian, everything else. But Gretzky was being, touted as being the next great one. And then he was. LeBron James, it feels like, was that same way. I mean, there were a lot of guys after Jordan that always talk about, well, this is the next Jordan, this is the next Jordan. But LeBron, I mean, what are they, right? Even before he was out of, they were calling him the chosen one then. So this is, Bryce Underwood is in this kind of rare air before he ever hits the field. And then just look at it right now, how things have changed since you go back to last November when, Michigan was, 5-5, and then they end up getting Underwood. Everything's changed with the program since then, but It wasn't immediate when Michigan got Underwood, like, whoa, he'll start for sure next year. Oh, these next 3-4 years are going to be great. But now I think everybody thinks that, it is Underwood and the next 3 or 4 years are going to be great. So that's it. I like taking your questions, and I'm just talking about camp here. So you got some questions about Michigan football. You got some what's filling up your mind with Michigan football. Let's hear it. If there's a certain thing that's on your mind when it comes down to that. Hype is what Ferris is all about. I got some hype for you when it comes down to it. Ferris is asking, what is the GOAT of all Michigan hats that you have owned? I got a combo Tigers Michigan hat that I love. I used to get a lot of, those Detroit Tigers, and then you'd have the different themes on there. The Tigers I would get a lot of those when I worked in Detroit, and I gave all of that stuff to my dad. And then I now have it back. 6 years ago, he passed away, but I have all these, these great Michigan hats. So at different times I will wear them and put them on. So those are all, but as far as just Michigan specific, of course, my dad had a few Michigan hats that he had. When I've got it now. I got more. I got to think. I keep thinking. A lot of them are sentimental. I went and did a radio broadcast, first ever at Michigan, of at practice, and I came up and they handed me the Michigan hat. I still have that one. I didn't think that I wore it all too much, but it was a Michigan hat that they gave me when I was broadcasting at the first ever Michigan football practice that had a live broadcast. It was me. That one was sentimental. I got another one a couple of years ago that was giving me, I was doing some pregame stuff out at the golf course. They had this great setup and the stage and everything. And they gave me this Michigan hat. Well, I only wear, it's such a good, nice hat that it's one of these that I don't wear very much because I didn't want it to, I see my old one and it's, it's weathered now. It still actually fits. I haven't had it on a couple of years, or a couple of months certainly, but it's still, you put it on, it feels good, looks good. But that's the way this other one had. And I have to also would put in honorable mention. So the one that the Lloyd, I say Lloyd Carr gave it to me. I don't really remember. Happy birthday to Lloyd Carr, turns 80 today. I don't remember if it was Carr that actually handed me the hat and said, hey, here you go. Or if it was, just somebody next to him. He was there and they're like, here, here's a Michigan hat for you. Whatever. It kind of feels like Carr handed it to me. Who would know anyways? But so there's that one. Then there's the one that I just got recently that I don't wear very much, but I put it on. It would be if somebody said, hey, here's, $100, go buy the Michigan hat you would want. That would have been the one. There is a hat that I did not like when I got it. That was a Michigan hat that was given at the same time. It was one, and it ended up being this way. Josh Gaddis, the former Michigan offensive coordinator, I liked the gear that he would wear. I was like, hey, he looks good on Gaddis. It looks good on Gaddis. And some of that stuff, would end up in my closet. But the hat that was given to me was one that Gaddis wore. And I put it on, and it fit really well, and I liked it. But I didn't really like how it looked on my head. That happens sometimes. But wouldn't you know, after a couple years, that particular hat, whatever it's made, it's like a soft cloth maybe, or I don't know, wick away kind of material. Was that hat even around? I wear that hat all the time. It's great in the summer, and in the winter, it's also fabulous all season. So those three. One additional hat, and it's, I would say, a Michigan hat as well. You're asking specifically about Michigan hats. I think all of these hats, that would be my favorite, would probably be all Michigan hats. But there was one from the what is it? The Michigan Greater Michigan chapter of. I have to look and see what exactly who gave it to me, but I have that one. It actually says U of M Club of Greater Detroit. That's what it is. And it says it right there on the back, and it was given to me by a friend. And it's actually a hat that I don't know if I've ever worn in public. I just had it out, so I liked it. And so that's it. A lot of hat talk. Bring it out here. Here's Mark talking about Underwood. Wants to compare him to Drew Henson. 8 starts, a bowl win, competing with Brady. Henny and Leach, any of those 3 levels of freshmen, I see 10 to 12 wins. And that includes an Oklahoma early loss, 11-plus deep playoff. Yeah, the one thing about Henson is that while Henson played a little bit, came in and mopped up, and, when he was a true freshman. So he got to kind of that J.J. McCarthy treatment where he was just sprinkled in, although McCarthy played more than Drew Henson. But in Henson's second year, that's when they had a little bit where they came up with whoever plays best at the end of the first half. They'll make a decision on who starts the second half. And 2 times Drew Henson started the second half when Tom Brady was still on the team. Never started a game when Brady was there, but did start the second half twice. One was at Syracuse. Was at that game. They got 18-16 games, odd score like that. And the other one was Michigan State, 34-31 game. That was one that I can remember being at and saying, it didn't matter if it was Tom Brady or Drew Henson. That defensive line for Michigan State won the game. Although late in that game, Tom Brady was just letting it fly all over the place and brought him back. And the question, there was a lot of people like, well, wow, what if Tom Brady would have started the second half? And at the time, I dismissed it. But, as the years go on and Brady turns out to be like this greatest quarterback of all time, you'd say, oh, those people had a pretty good point. Henny and Leach are the ones being right out there. To me, it's the deal when it comes down to it, Mark, is that being a redshirt freshman, I mean, it's still an amazing amount of pressure and everything because of the quarterback position and all that. But when you just walk in and you were in high school the year, but you're a true freshman, you're talking about starting, it's really amazing to me that players, and I don't remember the circumstances surrounding Leach where he had to get in there in the 70s, but I do remember, Henny. Matt Gutierrez ended up with what they call a tired arm. Just could, and he is one of these guys that you rooted for. I knew his parents when they would come in there and talk. And then it was the eve of the opener, and there was a little Pennsylvania newspaper that picked up. They got the story, and was it on the eve or was it the morning of? And they were like, it's going to be Henny. So it just came out. So, but you're saying if they get the kind of performance that they got from Henny or Leach, that they could win 10 games. 10. I think that thinking about them winning 10 games is appropriate. Now, if you're somebody that really looks at the odds, I was looking at them yesterday. To Michigan to make the playoffs, so you assume having 10 wins there. They could win 9, and I know that people have said, well, it depends who they lose to. I suppose that they will still have a shot. I wouldn't think it would be a very good shot, but they could have a shot at being a 9-3 team. But the odds on MGM was that Michigan was plus 200 to make the playoffs. And so if they win 10 games, they're going to be in the playoffs no matter who they lose to. So if you're a Michigan fan, I think however you are able to work it through in your brain, it will be a little bit of a surprise as you just look at the odds market for Michigan to win more than 8.5 games, however, it was like minus 150, minus 175. So everyone thinks the betting market, I should say, thinks that Michigan is going to win 9 games. That's what they think. And it's a little bit, not a reach, but just a little bit where it's going to be a little bit of a surprise if they make the playoffs. That's at least how they're looking at it. Yeah, I mean, Smash the Numbers is coming up. I remember the Pistons had the number 2 pick, and they took Darko. Of course, I was talking about LeBron, and yeah, I mean, you can go through all kinds of things like that where you get the very top guys, and then they end up not coming through. The thing about Darko is that he was a very high pick, but the comparison here is Bryce Underwood would be LeBron James. They weren't saying that Darko, sure, he was dominating over wherever he was from over in Europe. And, Dwayne Wade was awesome at Marquette, and Chris Bosh, and of course, Carmelo Anthony, what he did in the NCAA. But nobody was looking at any of those guys thinking, oh, man, you get Carmelo and you are all set for the next 20 years. That is what people thought about LeBron. Mitchell. Hey, Dennis, OSU fan here. Love the show. Would you compare Underwood to Terrell Pryor at all? Well, I think they might have similar type builds. I don't know. It was, Pryor, just thinking about it, I mean, he might have been 6'4". I mean, he was that kind of quarterback, very highly touted. I would say that the difference between Underwood and Pryor is that now that the recruiting analysts have continued on and they've been able to evaluate, and it's a fluid situation, that Underwood is the highest rated composite, if you want to use that, or industry ranked quarterback ever. They've just really done it in the 21st century. You just go back and look to Arch Manning, and Underwood's got a little bit higher score. You go back and look at Quinn Ewers, a little bit higher score. All of these quarterbacks, even Trevor Lawrence, who is great, and everybody talks about, and, hey, what if he went and they won the national championship. Underwood has a better industry score than him. Everyone except an 04 in Adrian Peterson. I have to say, Mitchell, that a couple months ago, before On3 and Rivals got together, almost everyone had Underwood as the very top player in the class, obviously very top quarterback, except Rivals, who had Ohio State's quarterback number 1, and they had Underwood too. And that, to me, when I saw it, was thinking, okay, this is not across the board. This is not a LeBron James type situation. There are some, or one, or however, at least one site at that point when they put their brains together, they did not think that he deserved to be the number 1 overall guy. It was the Ohio State guy. Now, when they combined, they ended up adjusting the rankings, and Underwood is 1 now. All that went into it, those things are always interesting and discussed by especially rival fans, like, what's going on here. And I would say, I was thinking about Terrell Pryor's game, and, I had a chance to see Terrell Pryor. I have only seen a spring game and highlights in high school of Bryce Underwood. Underwood looks to me like a true pocket passer at 6'4". Somebody that, if he couldn't run at all, would be, and it's the number 1 thing that you want, the quarterback position, somebody that can stand in the pocket and deliver the ball downfield. Now, Pryor was looked at as more of would I say run first? I would. I'm thinking, would I say it? I'm going to. I would say he would have been more of a run first guy. Someone who Rich Rodriguez was looking to put in it. Rich Rodriguez really wanted his trigger man so he could and he wanted Pryor so much. And it would have been more run first, spread type thing. So that's the difference. I think they're different quarterbacks. Underwood as the passer, Pryor more as the runner. Let's keep it going here. Emily has reposted the stream. Well, hey, thanks, Emily. See you there on Twitter. Nice to be seen on Twitter. That's good. I like the questions that are rolling in. What position other than quarterback will Michigan upgrade the most from 24 to 25? Now, that's a really good question. Well, would it be, let's just go through them. Would it be running back from what they had from Mullings and Donovan Edwards with the two? I am going to say it's probably not there. Would I say it's the offensive line? No. Tight end, they had Colston Loveland last year. So as much as I'd like the group, I would also say no there. The offensive line, I can't say. I've got a question at left tackle for Michigan. Wide receiver. So they lost Tyler Morris, and they're bringing in McCulley. And then they've got the three freshmen, and then they had some freshmen last year that didn't play. I think wide receiver sounds like it would be a pretty good one. I don't see it on the defensive side. The linebackers are the same. The edge, they lose. The edge is in good spot. It's obviously not going to be the interior defensive line, where I also would put a question mark. It's not going to be a corner. So, yeah, wide receiver will be the biggest upgrade as I look at it on paper. Henson pushed Brady. That's elite. Yes, he did. He pushed him. There's no doubt about that. And there were some, even in Henson's true freshman year, put myself in that category, when Tom Brady lost his first two games as a starter, that there was the idea that why not just go with Henson now, because Brady had his shot and they're not going to win anything, and let's get it going for Henson. But that was not the right answer. Ferris has smashed some numbers. He expects that Underwood should be 80% of JJ. JJ was the GOAT of Michigan. Quarterbacks will be a nightmare. And will be a nightmare for the Lions in the NFC North. Oh, JJ will be. Yeah, well, JJ, the thing about JJ is that this is a really, is it a fun exercise? It's a good exercise to put yourself through in terms of what you're expecting from Underwood. If JJ in his true freshman year in 2021 would have been the starter right out of the gate, how would that season have gone? Michigan ended up winning all their games except against Michigan State. And they made the college football playoff. Obviously, they beat Ohio State. Could have JJ, as a true freshman, did what Cade McNamara was able to do? The first thing that you want to say is yes. It was JJ freaking McCarthy. This guy was as Ferris was talking about, this great Michigan quarterback, eventual, national championship quarterback. But it's a good thing to put yourself through, because what I remember about JJ is that he came in, I think it was against Northern Illinois, and he ran around at a figure eight, ran over to the sideline, was doing this like Patrick Mahomes routine, threw the ball all the way back over to the sideline to the receiver, who then took it like 60 yards for a touchdown. It was just like this incredible highlight, JJ McCarthy. But you're thinking, what are we in store for with this quarterback, this guy that's running all over the place? There was a lot of that from JJ. Now, not so much in that true freshman year, but even when JJ was a starter, and so what, he didn't get the first game, he got the second game, and then, Cade, unfortunately, just couldn't handle the competition. Went by the wayside, and JJ got the start. I thought that it took JJ. If you remember, the Maryland game was at home. That would have been JJ's first start. The game looked fast for McCarthy. He was running around, dropping the ball. It was fly. I don't know. Did he fumble 3 times? But only one of them was recovered. Was either of them recovered? I don't remember that, but I do remember the ball like bouncing around and him getting hit blindside, him trying to do the escapability and stuff. And it was just the game was too fast for him, or he needed to get the game speed. In the second half of that Maryland game, there was so close to him throwing an interception. The guy's foot was just out of the end zone. It didn't. Michigan won that game. He went to Iowa on the road. Mason Graham was great in that game, especially on that 4th and 1. But JJ early on, it was another one where he got stripped, and the ball was bounding towards the end zone. I think it was Donovan Edwards who ended up saving the day. It was like that ball security stuff, being a freshman, you have to go through the speed. Whatever Bryce Underwood's doing today, what they're not doing is coming in off the edge and nailing him and throwing him into the ground. He knows. They might have some sticks with some pads on them that they'll hit him with the hand, hit him down low and stuff. But until somebody's trying to actually, and live reps where they're trying to take your head off and they're trying to plant you into the ground, and you got guys flying all over the place, and you're in the 100-degree humidity down in Norman, and everybody's screaming. It's you have to do and go through that. I think that's why Mark was saying he still likes Michigan to win 10 games, but not that one. JJ it took him over a year to get accustomed to the game speed. And then it took JJ almost 2 years until that Ohio State game where he really got comfortable enough where he was able to get the ball down the field, actually execute downfield passing. He tried a little bit. He could have been had that against Illinois a little bit earlier. He did have one against Rutgers that maybe it could have been the wide receiver, could have been the quarterback. I don't know. But the point is, it took him, I don't always say a long time. It took him a year for whatever he played as a true freshman, and then, 3-4 games till he got comfortable, protecting the ball. And then it took him 2 years before he was able to get that downfield passing. So, but again, we're talking about Underwood, and a lot of this, like, hey, let's remember JJ, or a lot of this is you're talking about somebody that they consider to be above all of these guys that we're talking about. JJ was a hell of a prospect, a hell of a quarterback, but JJ was here, and Underwood's at the very top of everyone. What that means, we're going to find out. I think that as a Michigan fan, people have been asking me, what do you expect? And I expect that there's going to be some growing pains in the position, because I have seen that with almost every quarterback that I've ever watched. And yet we're talking about someone who people think is better than all of them, at least heading in. So maybe he will be, and Mark mentions Henny. Henny had to go on the road to Notre Dame, and Lloyd Carr, he protected, and you got to protect your quarterback, but he almost protected him too much in that game at Notre Dame that Michigan lost. And you could see that one coming. Even though Michigan was a big favorite, even though they had the true freshman quarterback, they lost that game. Carr packed it in too tight. He's trying to protect his quarterback. So, good questions coming in. Taking maybe too long on them. Let's go through it. Darko was a project. Mark was talking about Leach was 100% starter, taking over for Dennis Franklin. The backup never really played. Tuco thinks that running back will be the clear upgrade. That would be great. Heading in, they didn't do the greatest job with Donovan Edwards. I was expecting, if you listened all last year, hey, do this with Edwards, try him this way. And they always kept trying to do the same thing. We could sit around doing a whole show about Donovan Edwards and his legacy and how he was used. And hell, I think the first thing that you have to say is that look at him in the championship season, in the championship game. Look at him in the championship season, in the championship game. Look at him the year before when they needed him with a busted arm at Ohio State. Look at those. Look at the big games that Donovan Edwards, and if Donovan Edwards would have been drafted in the third round or something, I think people would, but he wasn't. He wasn't drafted. And so people, feel like he was some kind of bust or something. I don't think Michigan used him, even though they had all this success. I think about that game where Sharon Moore had to take over and for Harbaugh, and how Michigan ran the ball all those times. Some of those runs were Edwards, and early in the game, some of the biggest plays were from Donovan Edwards. So I'm still, and Mullings won a game all by himself. So I'll say wide receiver. I would argue that one with you, Tuco, but I did think about it the way we're at there. Cut from a different cloth. Everyone is not the same. JJ was okay. Bryce Underwood is way better. Well, certainly everyone's not the same. JJ ultimately was great, but at the outset, I would say that Underwood is more ready to play immediately. Some of the stuff you have to take a step back, like he's been training since he's been 5 years old and what you find is players at this level, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them, since they've been 5 years old. It reminded me a little bit of the Tiger starter the other day. They had this kid up, and they went to the parents, as they'll do, in the stands, and the question was, what'd you think he was great? And his mom, I don't even remember what his mom said, high school or something like that. But they went to his dad. He said, I knew right away. I mean, he just, he was special. Underwood is, there's no doubt, from the time he's been 5, and then to even think about him starting as a freshman in high school. That's weird. I mean, that's a freshman in college. He is doing all of these things. But you're right. Underwood is. It's. I have to keep reminding myself that Underwood, what we are talking about, is a horse of another color. Even if it comes down to the quarterback position and all of these greats and everything that they did by the time that they were 5 years old, this kid, his route, it's been, I say, a little bit different, because all along, everybody, great, and he has exceeded the expectations all along. So you can say, well, you're splitting hairs because McCarthy was looked at. All right, I'm there. Let's read some more. Some new people that are coming in. Nelson doesn't want to put too much hope in a true freshman, but I'm expecting a Natty and a Heisman this year. Well, that's a funny statement, but I think this is kind of where everyone is. I don't know about, expecting a Natty and a Heisman, but you understand that he's 17 years old. There's still just about 3 weeks until he turns 18. And yet people are expecting Michigan to make the playoffs this year. And I am able to push myself through to the end. And let's say they do make the playoffs. If Michigan makes the playoffs, you're expecting them to win. You're expecting them, if they make the playoffs. I don't think you're going to go in, if Michigan makes the playoffs, and say, well, we're just happy to be here. No, I think that people would expect for them to make a run at it. And so while you're saying this tongue in cheek, Nelson, I don't think anybody wants to put too much hope on a true freshman, but it's just time to take the pin and right there, pin it on him. He expects that too. Aaron's not hiding. Aaron is saying, in fact, that Underwood is going to break every single season record for a Michigan quarterback, including Denard. Move over, Henny. There's a new sheriff in town. I get it. Trevor's in clean Michigan football, saying to like this pod, subscribe to this pod. That is, when I see something like that, Trevor, it just warms my heart on the, my heart's already warm because it's the start of camp and football is almost here, but thank you so much when it comes down to that. Jay has jumped in. We got a lot of good questions here today. Let's see where Jay is at. Jay's looking good. I want some wraparound shades like that, Jay. Let's go. Jay thinks that Michigan will be better all around. If our quarterback play is just 50% better, I'll take it. Anything is better than being dead last in the rankings last year, and we still had a winning season. Yeah, if they can pick up where they left off, then they will be cooking. And picking up was where they left off as they won those last 3 games, and the defense, had one of their greatest performances ever against Ohio State. And then the defense had 10 of 11 of the guys who will likely be starting against Oklahoma, playing against the Alabama ones, and they pretty much stuffed them. Stuffed them right out of the gate, that's for sure. Trevor is saying, I got to check out Marshall on the Leaders and Best podcast, dudes. A natural-born leader. Well, you'll have to send him my way. Send me a link or something there, Trevor. Tell me what he's all about. A lot of people in this space talking about Michigan. A Bryce Underwood of the podcast industry. Okay. I'm intrigued. So the hype train starts with Underwood. Could put him up there in the driver's seat where I put a picture of myself up there because I am driving the hype train, but I could also put pictures of all of you into this train in the back. He is there. He is running it. The expectations doesn't matter. It's for Michigan to make the playoffs and for Underwood to lead them there. Now, the good thing about Underwood is that Trevor Lawrence has talked about a lot. And if you go back to 2018 and, Lawrence didn't take over right away. He came in and saved the day. I think it was at Syracuse. Kelly Bryant was a few years as a starter and had success there. So it took a while before they, even though they had Lawrence in there, but once he saved the day, they put him in there as a starter. If Kelly Bryant was on this team, he would probably be starting over Bryce Underwood, I would think. But the point that I was going to make about Lawrence is that Dabo Sweeney's 2018 team ended up being the number 1 defensive ranked team in the country. So if Michigan gets this great defense, if you told me that Michigan finished top 5 in defense, which is, it's not an outlandish thing to say. I don't think anybody's like, oh boy, you're being a real homer there. It's in the, I don't even say in the realm of possibility. Is it likely? I would say it's likely that they finish in the top 10. They could. So if you're in the top 10, you could, you get some things going. Could you finish in the top 5? I think that if you told me that Michigan had that particular piece of information, I'd feel pretty good about them winning 10 games. So Clemson had the number 1 defense. They also had Travis Etienne, who, ended up being, he could have won the Heisman that year. He had such great numbers, one of the best single seasons that you could ever have as a running back. He was great. They had Justin Ross, who was a 1,000-yard receiver, never really hit in the NFL, but they had Hunter Renfrow. And, oh, yeah, they had T. Higgins. I mean, so it was just talent. All-American left tackle. And then you just plopped Trevor Lawrence in there. The point here is that, like 2021, when we're talking about with Cade McNamara, or as someone mentioned last year, if it could just be 50% better, Underwood doesn't have to be LeBron James. It's making sense or not, but he just he needs to be serviceable until the end, when he's going to have, and then by then, they say, well, there's no freshman anymore. You get 3, 6, 9 games under your belt. Well, then, he is going to get better. I think he's going to get better. Not always just every single game. Could have a little bit of dip, but in the end, better. And the way Michigan has built the program, it's going to be a lot like 2021. Where, as much as someone said he's going to break every single record and all this, I don't think he's going to throw over 30 times a game. And there'll probably be one game that he would do that. Who knows? You get behind or something, you have to throw a little bit more. But I think ideally they would like to see him throw for about 25 times a game. That's not a lot when you look at it. They're going to be handing it off a lot. They want to, and nothing's going to help a true freshman quarterback out than a running game and a really good defense. And I think that they've got a really good, I was going to say special teams. We know that they've got a great kicker. So when you start talking about special teams, there's so many different phases in there. But they've got the best kicker in the country. I know they just brought in a punter from Division II, but they always were looking for some depth at punter. So, and Hollenbach did a good job in the bowl game. So I would be encouraged in the kicking department if I was a Michigan fan. And the way they've recruited these last couple of years, when I think about the coverage teams, Joe Taylor, 38, number 38, 39, one of the all-time aces on special teams. But you go through, we talk so much about the linebacker depth, and if these guys are not nipping at the heels of Hausman and Barham, well, then guys like Chase Taylor and NOB, I mean, the special teams, they make a mark. Is Nate Marshall and Julius. I mean, these guys could be special teams. I'm expecting, because of the talent, that Michigan's going to have exceptional special teams as well. Just talked about the kickers, but all of that. So ace special teams, potential, top 5, top 10 defense, and they're going to be a run first a team. You don't have to be Superman. Right? I'm tending bar on the hype train. Let's go. Yeah, well, hey, look, there's no reason, I think, to slow it down or anything. I mean, this is Michigan's got their Mickey Mantle that they're putting in there. Michigan's got their LeBron James. Michigan has a better equipped better rated Drew Henson. I don't know who else we're even thinking about here. They've got it. Mark, going back to last year. Yeah, the part about getting elevated play from the quarterback position is going to happen. Smack the like button. That's right. Smack that subscribe button as well. That's the one you want to smack. Where you should smack is you should smack that the subscribe button to the Maize and Blue Review. Or we're sitting around talking about Michigan all day and all night. That's the way that it's done. So there it is. Comes down to the hype train, number 1, Bryce Underwood. I'll have some train music underneath that. There he is. Jake Butt, when he was in Vegas, said on TV those first 4 games on this Michigan schedule, we're going to know who the Wolverines are. I agree. 2 of those games at Oklahoma, at Nebraska. We are going to find out. If I've pinned myself down, I feel like, even though they can have a great season, as Mark has pointed out here, he has them having a great season at 10-2 or 11-1, and he has them losing against Oklahoma. But how Underwood looks against Oklahoma, I can't, I would say I can't wait. Nobody can wait, but I would like to wait until I watched him after that game to say, all right, Michigan's going to be in the playoffs. I really like their chances to get in the playoffs. I would like to watch him against Oklahoma. But none of us are going to have that luxury. We have to make our picks. Yeah, I haven't really thought, Mark, I'm not going to consider any floors with Mikey Keene until I have to. Yeah, he's transferring up. That would be the first thing. So anybody who's in that situation, we have seen plenty of guys who have had success. Josiah Stewart comes to mind, where he transferred up from Coastal Carolina to Michigan, and he ended up being a great player. The 2 corners, Josh Wallace from the championship season, it took him a little. Amir Hall took him a little bit, but then those guys ended up being, wonderful players. But some guys who transfer up, it doesn't always translate. And I say, all right, well, they were whatever medium-sized fish in a small pond, and then they went up to the big pond, and they just couldn't stay up. So I don't know about, Keene's taken over 2,000 snaps, so he's got some experience. I do know this, that Keene would have been better than what they had last year, but that also is a scary proposition, because you're thinking if we all knew that and they couldn't figure that out, it makes you feel like that maybe the first year head coach and his brain trust, and it's different now, but you can make yourself think like, what are those guys really doing when it came down to it? All right, Nelson, before we get to basketball, has one last, we got 2 more questions. 2 more. Nelson says, you think Michigan actually lets Bryce take advantage of his athleticism and runs? Always seem more like lip service with JJ. I disagree with that. I think that JJ ran more than they wanted him to, sure, but those were in some of the games where I wouldn't want him to run either. But I thought JJ ran and used his legs in the big games, and that's what I think that they will let Bryce do. I don't think that, he's going to – I would not want him to run against New Mexico or CMU. And then you could start getting to some of these other games where you could say, all right, if you got a 3-score lead against Wisconsin in the third quarter, you want him to run, but you don't want him taking shots. And so it's tough management when it goes with that. But it's one of those things when you're talking about a young quarterback. Look at JJ. JJ couldn't figure that out. You know what you do is you've been such a superstar, and then they never hit you, and then you get out there and you're seeing live action, and you're like, I can squeeze out of next thing you know, you're getting hit in the side by a locomotive, and you're getting flattened, and the ball's squirming out. So that's going to be a work in progress. That's what I think. Having said that, Mr. Smooth, here's Underwood stepping out of bounds, looking like a player, advanced in his years, like so many of the players that I practiced with him through the spring and throughout the summer. They even were saying it again in Vegas that he just doesn't look like a freshman. You watch him out, he doesn't look like he looks like he's been playing this game at this level for longer. He doesn't look like a 17-year-old. How many guys did you see the quotes saying that? Almost all of them were saying that. So, yeah, I'm not agreeing with what they said. JJ, you just go through JJ's game log and look at a big game, like, oh, JJ was running a little bit more. Oh, JJ ran against Alabama. JJ ran against Ohio State. JJ ran against Penn State. I think he got hurt against Penn State. Sideways. Sideways has got, what's that stand for? The team up north, the champions of the north. There you go, of up north. I got it. I like it. We're forgetting about how important Chip Lindsey is. Look at the last offensive coordinator. Look at what happened with speed and space. Now we have someone that knows how to run the offense. Yeah, I'm not one who is going to look back at the last two offensive coordinators and throw them out. They ended up ultimately, it wasn't a situation when it came down to Gaddis. It ended up being things off the field that hurt him. I know a lot of people love to, oh, well, look at him at Miami. Look at him now. Or look at him now. But he did just fine at Michigan. Even if it was Harbaugh, a shared responsibility, he was the man up on the horse. He was making the calls. I think he did a pretty good job. He deserved the broils. He didn't have to, acquiesce and give it to Jim Harbaugh. So there's a lot of hate for Gaddis. I understand it. But, it was the same thing last year. A guy that was endorsed by JJ and Jim Harbaugh, and he didn't know his head from his ass. But, hey, if he was in there, the offensive coordinator last year, and Sharon's here saying, oh, yeah, we're good with all these QBs. When you end up getting shown the door, sometimes it seems like that he was over there talking but let's just see. I mean, Chip Lindsey's got nice credentials. He could be an awesome offensive coordinator, but I'm not really, that's not me. I do think that's a typical Michigan response and narrative, though. Bryce will do it when he wants. WB doesn't buy Underwood sitting in the pocket all game, especially depending on our wide receivers. Not in big games. So it's going to depend on. It's going to be. It'll sound like we give you the coach speak. It's going to be situational. Going to be situational. And look, as a Michigan fan, I would want, you're going to have to, again, maybe he is just going to be sidestepping dudes and he's going to look like Lamar Jackson when he runs and he's going to have this incredible pocket awareness and he's just going to see everything. But that is very unlikely to happen. There will be some aspect of his game, the speed of the game around him running, and getting hit is going to probably be one of those spots, if I had to guess, and all these things that he can do great, and he's, the greatest of all time. The speed of the game, getting adjusted to that, he'll get a little bit of a taste of it against New Mexico, but he'll be getting a pretty good taste of that when we see what happens when he's going against Oklahoma. So, I mean, we already saw it. People don't like to take things out of the spring. Both Michigan teams, you take absolutely nothing. People that say you take absolutely nothing away from the spring game, I don't really want to hear their breakdown of football if they can't figure out how to take individual reps and be able to talk about them. But what we did see from an operation standpoint was a quarterback that had multiple clock issues, ball handling issues, and a quarterback who wasn't able to get the ball down the field complete. Now, he had a couple drops where it would have been different that way. But yeah, when you got personnel running in and out, and you're 17 and all these, even if you are the greatest thing since sliced bread, you still might have to take a couple delay games and burn some timeouts because, those things take a lot of practice. But again, maybe he's not going to have any of these issues with any personnel. He's not going to have any of these delay of games. He's not going to drop the ball like he did in the spring game. He was dropping it on a key third down. He was getting delay of game after, let's say a bunch of them. He had two of them. But those are the kind of things I expect, even if he's the greatest thing ever. But, you have all of these things that you see, and then you have the greatest thing ever, and maybe it would just be like, wow, he really is the greatest thing ever. None of these things that we thought. No, they won't. I think New Mexico is the worst team in college football, so I'm not expecting a whole lot from them, but that's fine. Yeah, they'll be fired up. I'll be fired up too. All right, I've got some basketball recruiting news for you. Here's some names to keep in mind. I've got 4 of them. The first 2 are 5-stars. Brandon McCoy is a 5-star combo guard out of California. He likes a lot of schools, but he likes Michigan. And so Michigan is in with a chance with Michigan, Duke, Bama, Arizona, Kansas, Kentucky, and USC. I would like to have that list trimmed down for you where they would be, with 3 teams, but this is just where it's at right now. If you're someone that wants to know what's going on with basketball, I'm giving it to you. And I'm just saying, when you have a guy like McCoy, who's one of the top players in the country, these guys are going to have lists that are as long as their wingspans. So McCoy's got a bunch of teams, but Michigan is in there. Anthony Thompson just released a list, and he did trim a bunch of teams off of his list. It's still lengthy. He had Michigan State on his list, but they got chopped. But Anthony Thompson is a 5-star power forward out of Ohio. He's got Michigan on his list along with a host of other schools, including Ohio State. I think Scott follows recruiting. I think there's this is true when it comes down to Duke and McCoy, although he does mention Michigan, so that's why I put him in there. 2 more for you to take a look at. And the big Finnish kid, Micah Murinen, is a 5-star power forward. He is in high school in Arizona. He's got, 10 teams, 8 teams, but Michigan is in there, and they're trying to get him in September. Get him out there for a football game. Let's see what he thinks. But Micah Murinen, another one to keep an eye on. And then this just recent, Gage Mayfield is out of Alabama. It's a shorter list. He's a 4-star power forward, but he is showing some interest in Michigan. Interesting list here. He's out of Alabama, and he likes Vandy. It tells you academics, like, oh, he's serious about school. Maybe. I see Vandy's name in there. I think that. But he's got Florida State, Texas, Oklahoma, and Michigan as well. So there you go. Mayfield, Murinen, Thompson, and McCoy. Could probably put another 10 up there. Those are some of the ones, and that's where we're sitting. So that's what I have for you. So great times talking about the season and camp. You want to know about some of those camp position battles, go check out the Maize and Blue review. My question marks for this team: a quarterback and left tackle and wide receiver on offense. All 3 of them could be great. I just spent an hour talking about the quarterback. Left tackle, there's a competition there, a guy that's played some, and then a true freshman. Babalola could be. I mean, maybe Michigan could be starting the season with a true freshman quarterback and a true freshman left tackle. Let's go. Let's see it. And then on defense, I would put, and they might be just fine at both of these spots, just like on offense, but I would put defensive tackle as a question mark, yeah, I like Rashawn Benny. I like Trey Pierce. I like the two tackles they've got in the transfer portal, and Williams and Payne from Clemson and Alabama. But you're replacing two of the best that's ever played at Michigan, who are statistically they had a top 5 rush defense. So until I would say the Alabama game, we'll see how those guys, if they're stout against the run, then that question mark can get answered pretty quick. And then I would also say the same thing at corner. Jair Hill got some double moves and got beat there, but he's a year older, and you're talking about him potentially as cornerback 2, and then Zeke Berry, you feel pretty good about him at cornerback 1, and Earl's the true freshman. Maybe he'll be in there. Maybe he'll ultimately take over. If Shug Hill isn't getting it done, and Z Edmonds, who was in there and got some burn last year, maybe it'll be one of those guys. So they got a lot of depth. They got a lot of players there. We'll see on that, but I would put corner and defensive tackle as questions as we sit here on this Wednesday starting training camp. 3 positions on offense, 2 on defense. What it adds up to, we'll see. The season getting closer and closer. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. Thanks so much. As people have pointed out, when you click the like button, you click the subscribe button. The subscribe button, it helps if you're somebody that's like, I don't like subscribing to things because it clutters up my phone. I don't know. Maybe it could be true for you. But the next thing you know, and it's nice, I think, that that I'm coming your way at 2:00 Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So you don't necessarily need that reminder. But I subscribe to podcasts myself and VCast. And all of a sudden you look down, oh, they're going live. Let me check in. Of course, you can always look back. And that's it. Unless I want to do 2 minutes on it's not that sad of a note, but it happens to all of us, I think, at one time or the other. It's happened with my phone, but it's now happened to my watch, and I am going to show everybody my watch that fell on the kitchen floor. Like everybody wears their watch on their left wrist. I was doing that, but then for a couple of days, because my left wrist was hurting a little bit, I was like, let me wear it on the right wrist. Well, it's a little more difficult to latch on there. And if you know anything about these smart watches, you got to charge them. So you are putting them on and taking them off at least once a day. That's what it was for me. But, it ended up falling on the kitchen floor, and as soon as I heard it, I knew. Although it worked all day yesterday and this morning, and I was thinking, well, it looked pretty shabby now with all these spider webs and smacked glass and everything else. I thought, you know what? It's still working, and I was still able to. Even the touch screen was working and everything else. But then when I went to charge it today, after I was back, it appears that it's dead. So it has been a very good watch, but it is over. I watched a lot of, I don't know why I was watching this. There were high school, they were talking about watches, like the one I was showing you, smartwatch. And they're like, it got me. It was a total headline that ended up being meaningless, but why? Something like, why are these kids wearing their smartwatches, in high school during football games? And I thought, oh, they're tracking their heart rates, and they're getting all this information they get to use. And no, they were wearing them, but they weren't even powering up. And they had a bunch of these high school kids like, man, I just wear it because it looks cool, but it was dead. And then they had like 4 or 5 of the kids, and this was the story. High school football players wear their smartwatches, but they don't have them powered up, but they think they look cool. Oh, look, they might look cool. I don't know about look. I like the watch, but it looks cooler when it's powered up, and you can put a whatever kind of face that you want on there. Should I roll around? I mean, I'm older, so maybe I'll just Should I just roll around with my watch that doesn't work? Somebody will look at it. I mean, if they're looking, are they thinking this guy's got a smashed up broken watch on that's not working? Or are they going to think this dude might be over 50, but he's pretty in tune with some style. I think I'm going to have to get a new one before the start of the season. That's it. That's how it goes. All right. That'll do it. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hey, like, get in right at the end. You're saying this guy's just on the first day of camp talking about watches. So I did it at the end. Watch for our next show. Until then, bye.